Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Preparing for the 2026 APH webinar for our census here in the state of Illinois. For those of you who attended this, I might look a little different. We are re-recording this because we had some screen share issues, and we are going to re-record what we had presented. If you were with us live, you will see the same presentation, but it will be looking a bit more optimized for your screen. My name is Peter Tusick. I am the Vice President of the Illinois Instructional Material Center and Public Policy here at the Chicago Lighthouse, and I'm joined by Elizabeth Miller, who is our Director and Librarian at the Illinois Instructional Material Center.
Hello, everyone.
Rock and roll. All right. So, what to expect from this session? Today's goal is going to be an overview informational webinar on what to expect for the 2026 American Printing House Census. That is a required, something we're required to conduct. We're going to have an informational session here, and we did not take questions live pertaining to individual students and whatnot because that would be disclosure of personally identifiable information, and we did not want to do that. So, an informational session. We are also going to be sending out a link for office hours, sort of this Friday, the 16th of January, as well as Friday, the 23rd of January, having two open sort of Zoom meetings for those who may have individual questions. You can also always feel free to reach out to myself, to Elizabeth Miller, to Leela Washington. We're always happy to set up individual one-on-one time, or you can always email us at iimc.material@chicagolighthouse.org. As far as our agenda, we're going to talk about what APH, or the American Printing House, is. Certainly, many of you in the field are familiar with the words, but maybe you're just not as clear as to what is APH. What is federal quota? A big part of APH is the federal quota program, which is what we're here to take its census for who is eligible. We'll talk about what an EOT, or ex officio trustee, is. We're going to talk about an overview of the census, meaning, what goes on both for all of you as well as what goes on behind the scenes. We'll talk about eligibility requirements, and there are some specifics there related to the definitions of blindness, and there is a new definition of blindness or vision loss that now can be used to qualify an eligible student. We're going to talk about next steps. What will happen as of January 12th, 2026, when you receive your spreadsheets and you are kind of ready to input and make sure all of our students are accounted for? What is that going to look like? I'm going to be talking about the importance of counting every student because we need to maximize our federal quota dollars. And that will be kind of where we hit today. So nothing crazy, very informative, and away we go. What is the American Printing House? Well, the American Printing House for the Blind, or APH, as you will always hear us say, APH, APH, APH. The American Printing House is the world's largest company that is devoted solely to creating products and services for people who are blind or visually impaired. APH was founded in 1858, which is a long, long time ago. And APH is the oversight agency for the federal quota program. It administers those funds across many, over about 130 federal quota accounts, to which three we're specifically talking about here in the state of Illinois that I am overseeing, but there are many across the country. Illinois has three of them. And so again, APH kind of oversees that federal quota program. What is the federal quota program, you may ask? Well, the federal quota program was established as a part of the Act to Promote the Education of the Blind, which was enacted in 1879. It's tasked with providing adapted educational materials to eligible students who meet the definitions of blindness. And only those students are eligible for APH products. It is a catalog-based, the federal quota system is a catalog-based system, and only eligible students can receive products from that catalog. Every year, the federal programs is conducting a mandatory census, and that is annually takes place to determine the eligible students so that the funding allocations can be given to each state and materials can be purchased from APH. The funds are divided up. They're credited to state-specific federal quota accounts. Here in Illinois, the accounts that I oversee as the ex officio trustee is the public school account, that is account number 54, and the private school and agency account, which is account number 55. And there's also an internal account here at the Chicago Lighthouse, which is account number 49. And you can find an entire database of your ex officio trustees online. There is an EOT database, so you can look and see not only who your EOTs are, if you're somewhere else and you're stumbling on this webinar, but also where and how to contact your ex officio trustees. As far as how the federal quota program works, Congress appropriates funds each October, and those funds or that allotment is divided up by the total number of registered eligible students, and each state's proportion is then allocated, right, or determined kind of by the census. So the more students we count, the more money we are able to leverage to purchase products for students. Generally, this comes out to when you break it all down, even with our massive student total being the third largest state in the country when it comes to APH census numbers, we're looking at about $300 per student. And when we break that down, we know that most orders far exceed $300. When you have, especially the more high-tech products like a embosser could be about $4,000, or you look at a Monarch being $15,000, you realize the importance of registering students and how every single student helps us not only have more money allocated to our state, but also we can spread that money around and make sure that everyone is getting what they need, from your Braille paper all the way up to your high-tech items. Per student, it's credited. Each kind of account will receive a different amount of money, but that quota money is in for that year. Ex officio trustees are responsible for spending the money in their accounts. And if we come to the next slide, you will see what an ex officio trustee is. And that is a designated individual for each residential school. So in Illinois, we have not myself, but a different EOT, Amy, who's down at the Illinois School for the Blind. And there are a couple of other quota accounts that do exist. But the state departments of education, which are the accounts that I oversee, as well as the Chicago Lighthouse, is an agency for the blind that has their own quota account. And they are overseen by EOTs, who is entrusted, right, with the spending and kind of allocating of the money throughout their system. I am the vice president of the Illinois Instructional Material Center, and I serve as the EOT for those three accounts. And trust me, as someone who's totally blind and has not only received products from APH growing up, but also has worked closely over the past many years with APH, developing things like the Monarch and the Chameleon and the Mantis and lots of those products. I do not take it for granted, and I'm absolutely thrilled, and honored to be the EOT for these three accounts in the state of Illinois. Coming forward, we'll come to the next slide and talk about a brief overview of the census. The census runs from January 5th to May 31st. And again, we'll talk about specific Illinois dates here in a moment, but the funding that is allocated here determines eligibility, and we're checking to see who is going to be on our rolls for next year. There is a timeline. We will have a first, second, and third phase, which we are going to look at in detail here on the next slide. So phase one is, there's a phases at a glance slide here. And, phase one is the most important external action. It's where all of you out there, are making sure we are not only counting new students, but deleting old students, removing ineligible students. That is our child find or our student find area. We have a phase two, which is really where we end up doing a lot of things behind the scenes to squash any duplicates, to make sure that if we need to work with other EOT, other accounts, that we're not counting the wrong things. And then phase three is where we actually get our finalized allocations. Coming forward and actually getting a little more in depth, Um, what happened starting on January 12th, which is the date of this recording, every school district or agency is going to be and has received your Google Sheets from Leela Washington and from us here at the Illinois Instructional Material Center, where we will need you to account for all of your eligible students. This phase is going to run through February 27th, 2026. Students are eligible are not only going to need the meet the criteria for blindness, which we'll talk about in a moment, but also need to have parental consent on file. If we do not have parental consent, we cannot count that individual. That student cannot be counted. Recipients are going to be right those who receive the forms. You will place an X for students who are being deleted. Maybe they've moved. Maybe they've gone to another district. Maybe they have aged out. They're no longer in your district or your agency. They're otherwise, they're no longer eligible for the program. You need to add any new students that will be included in the upcoming school year's census, along with the expected date for that updated information to get to us. All of that student information, once it is complete and all of those forms are sent to us, we will check, double and triple check to try our best to avoid any conflicts later, but we will then upload those results to the SRS, which is the Student Resource System. We're then going to generate and kind of the reports that go up into APH that are then submitted for what is phase 2 and 3. We come forward to the next slide, which are the in-depth kind of behind the scenes reviews. Phase 2 really focuses on finding and making sure that we have all our not only information completed, but looking for any duplicates that may exist. Sometimes, especially for early intervention, or there may be other overlap where a student is counted more than once, and we need to straighten those duplicates out between EOTs, making sure that all that data is valid. So we properly assign them. Maybe they need to give Amy a call down at the Illinois School for the Visually Impaired, and we can make sure, who is going to be properly counting the right student, and we'll let anyone know what's going on. But we need to make sure we delete those true duplicates so that we are not counting anyone twice. Once that is done, there is a review period, and then phase 3 is our approval period where the EOT, I will sign off, and we'll have our official student count done. And we cannot move into APH cannot complete the census until all of the accounts are signed off on, and that's very important. I'm going to toss it over to Elizabeth, who is going to talk about eligibility and specifically the MDB, FDB, and IDEA eligibility requirements, and then what to expect from the IAMC. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. As Peter said, I'm Elizabeth Miller, the director and librarian for the Illinois Instructional Material Center, and we're looking at student eligibility requirements. So a student is eligible or possibly eligible for APH funding if they meet one of the following, either MDB, FDB, or IDEA. They need to be enrolled in a formally organized public or private nonprofit educational program of less than college level. School age students, including infants, toddlers, and preschool students, must be enrolled with the registered school or agency on the first Monday in January. And adult students must complete 120 hours of documented educational work in the preceding calendar year to be counted. So looking at the vision eligibility, so if a student meets the definition of blindness, MDB, they need to have a field of vision that is 20 over 200 or less in their better eye, or a visual field of less than 20 degrees, greater than or less than 20 degrees. For documentation, we need the medical verification, and that could be using the Snell or an equivalent test. This applies to birth through adult populations, and this does not qualify for IDEA eligibility, and an educational assessment is not accepted for these requirements. Moving on to vision eligibility, meets the functions at definition of blindness. So this is where the student's visual functioning uh, meets the definition of blindness as determined by a clinician. So this could be an optometrist, an ophthalmologist, or a neurologist who is medically verifying that this student meets the definition of blindness. The documentation for that, of course, is the medical verification of the clinician or medical doctor. This applies to students birth through adult. And again, this does not, it's not for IDEA eligibility, and an educational assessment is not accepted for this requirement. And finally, we are looking at IDEA. Now, this is the newest definition or requirement that's been added by the APH team. And so this is where an impairment in vision that even with correction adversely affects educational performance. And so if a student meets this definition, the school needs to have a comprehensive evaluation on file, which could include vision reports, a functional vision evaluation, learning media assessment, classroom data, as well as medical verification from a medical doctor. This impacts students up through age 22. It's only to be used if the student does not meet the MDB or FDB requirements. They have to have their IEP team is using the IDA compliant evaluation process, and an educational assessment is required for this definition. Finally, for adult eligibility, so adults may be registered if they fall into one of the following categories. They're adult students, formerly school-aged, who are registered as adults in their grade field. Guardian permission is required if a guardian is assigned. For vocational or rehabilitation program adults, they have to have received at least 120 hours of documented instruction in the previous calendar year. Instruction must be educational, vocational, or rehabilitative. Social or leisure programs do not qualify. Practice activities to develop skills may count. They are registered by the serving adult agency, and then guardian permission is required if applicable. So what to expect from the IIMC as you get your spreadsheets today on January 12th. This is where you will log all of your eligible students and verify what students may no longer be eligible for the program because they have graduated, or maybe they've moved districts and are now served by another EOT. So you'll review your current students and add any newly eligible students, remove any students. You will find in your communication links to the parental consent forms. These are going to be in English and Spanish for any of your newly eligible students. If you have a current student on the census and they continue to be eligible, you do not need to provide us with additional parental consent forms. The ones you originally submitted are still valid. You will receive weekly reminders sent in our newsletter and by email if you haven't submitted your final version to us for review. This webinar will be available if you have any questions and need to reference it. You can find it through our website. Additionally, we will have a follow-up webinar this Friday, the 16th, as well as on January 23rd for any specific questions you might have about completing your worksheets. Again, you can reach out to Peter, myself, or Leela with any questions through our email, iimcmaterial@chicagolighthouse.org. We can schedule a call or a Teams meeting to talk about your specific questions. Also, we'll be at IAER, so you can stop by and ask us any questions or just say hi. And then I'll turn it over to Peter.
Rock and roll. All right. This is the part of the program, everybody, where I talk about the importance of counting our students. It is so unbelievably important. We have done such a great job in the state of Illinois. We are the third highest when it comes to population in terms of the APH census. And you surely know we are not the third largest state in the country. So we've done a very, very good job. But I am absolutely certain, and the orders we get that are for non-eligible students reinforce my certainty that we have a lot of students that are out there that we have not had counted. And so, it is so important that we are counting all eligible students. You can only add students during this census phase one period. You cannot add a student to the census in April or May or July or October. A student is eligible now to be added January 12th through February 27th, and we are not able to add throughout any other part of the year. And that's so important because the eligibility, when you're adding a student, they become eligible on October 1st of 2026. So October of the year that we're adding them to the census. The more students we count, obviously, the more funds we have. The more funds we have means the more resources and equipment that we can provide to your students from APH. Think of just quickly a Jupiter portal magnifier, right? And those products that are, let's say, 2,500 or 3,000 or $4,000. We are able to get those products because we're using the funds for 10 different students or more, 15 students, or in the case of a Monarch, way more than that. And that doesn't mean that students somewhere aren't getting what they need. It means that we're able to maximize and optimize our dollars. So please, please, please remember to count all of our students. I know there are products coming this year that will be highly requested, and they will be here before we know it, and you will really want them. And we will love to get them for you, but we need to make sure that the funds are maximized. So the more students you register, the higher the likelihood is that we can get you what it is that you need, ranging from textbooks to braille paper, from your consumable switches to your embossers, your low vision equipment, your braille displays. We can do that for you by counting all the students. So please, please, please help us. Help us help you. I don't know any other way to put it. Help us help you. And if you have questions, you know where to find us. Again, you can always reach out and let us know. We are absolutely committed to serving students, and the final slide here kind of gives us that census map, and you can kind of get a sense of where we stand. So any questions you may have, wrapping up this truncated, this is kind of the abridged presentation version. We cranked this out a little quicker than the live one we did, but you can email us at iimc.material@chicagolighthouse.org. And thank you so much for watching this, and please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Elizabeth, thank you for the redo. Rock and roll, everybody.